heavy coastal fog draped the cliffs of northern Oregon like a thick, gray shroud. Waves thundered below, breaking endlessly against the jagged rocks with a mournful rhythm, as if the ocean itself were sighing beneath the weight of the sky. Overlooking this dramatic stretch of coastline stood a mansion carved from stone and glass, modern, angular, and utterly isolated. To outsiders, it looked like a dream, a marvel of architecture perched on the edge of the world. But to Julian Ward, it was a fortress. Julian had built it for silence. Every inch of its glass walls, every echo across the cold marble floors was intentional, a declaration of his preference for distance, for solitude, for control. He was a man the world called a genius. Visionary, tech innovator, founder of one of the most powerful AI networks in the industry. At just 41, he had reshaped digital life for millions. But inside these walls, none of it mattered. Not the accolades, not the wealth, not even the endless servers humming beneath the estate. Because when the morning light cut through the fog and spilled across the glass, it illuminated nothing but absence. Julian hadn't always wanted to be alone. As a child, he used to believe love was something that stayed, that it held you close even when you failed. But his mother taught him otherwise. She gave affection in fragments, conditional and fleeting, more reward than refuge. And his father taught discipline with a closed fist and eyes that never softened. Some wounds grow quiet with time. Others don't. They calcify, turn into habits, architecture, whole lives built around avoiding the same old ache. So Julian mastered the art of being untouchable. He built systems, empires, firewalls around his emotions. No one was allowed on the third floor of his estate, his sanctuary. Staff were efficient, anonymous, and forgettable. That was the rule. Everyone does their job, he once told the head groundskeeper, and then they leave. He didn't want connection. He didn't want curiosity. He didn't want to remember how it felt to hope. Because if you let someone close, they might leave, or worse, stay long enough to break something that's barely holding on. Julian Ward had grown comfortable inside his silence. It was predictable, like code, like control. But silence has a way of echoing too loudly when something unfamiliar slips in. Her name was Emilia Hart. She arrived on a Monday morning, unnoticed by the world, but not by the house. Even the air felt different, softer somehow as she stepped inside the estate. 33, steady-handed and quiet-eyed, Emilia didn't come looking to change anyone's life. She was simply working, like she had for nearly a decade, cleaning homes to pay for her sister's treatments. One house after another, never staying long enough to matter. She didn't believe in disruption. She believed in routine. "The third floor is off limits," the estate manager warned. "Mr. Ward values privacy above all." Emilia nodded. That was fine. She wasn't here to get involved. Her first task was the library, a soaring room of forgotten knowledge where dust gathered more attention than books. As she moved between shelves, she hummed to herself. Not for anyone else, just for the silence, just to soften the edges of an empty place. And from a screen upstairs, Julian saw her. At first, he felt the usual flicker of irritation. Someone new, someone present. But then, he didn't look away. Because something about her, the worn shoes, the calloused hands, the voice that hummed like memory, didn't intrude. She just was. And for the first time in years, something inside Julian shifted. Not loud, not sudden, just real. By the third weekend, the skies broke open. A violent wind howled through the cliffs, slamming sheets of rain against the tall glass windows. The estate, usually so still, seemed to tremble under the weight of the storm. One by one, the staff left early, anxious to outrun the flooding roads. But Emilia stayed. She moved quietly through the kitchen, wiping down counters, packing a small container of leftover stew and bread. Her sister would be waiting. A promise was a promise, even in the rain. "You shouldn't be driving in this weather." The voice came from behind her, low, even, and unexpectedly close. She turned and found him there. Julian Ward, in the flesh. He looked different in person, his hair slightly damp, shirt sleeves rolled up, no trace of the man on the screen. Only someone real, a little unsure, standing in his own home, like he didn't quite belong. "The coastal road floods fast," he added. "It's not safe tonight. I can call a car." "My sister needs dinner," Emilia said softly. "I'll be careful." A flash of lightning tore across the sky. A beat later, the mansion went dark. "The generator keeps essentials running," Julian said, almost to himself, "but not the lights." He hesitated, then added, "There's a fireplace in the library, if you'd rather wait out the storm somewhere warm." She nodded, without knowing why. The fire crackled as Julian stacked wood and struck the match. Shadows danced across old books and stone walls. He handed her tea in a porcelain mug, his fingers trembling slightly. "Why this work?" he asked, eyes fixed on the flame. Emilia sipped her tea. "For my sister. I left school to care for her. This job gives me hours I can manage. I never had the luxury of choosing anything else." A long pause followed. "And you?" she asked gently. "Did you ever dream of more than just code and screens?" He gave a small, honest smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't dream of more, I dreamed of being left alone." She turned, fully facing him now. Her voice was quiet. "So you built a prison to make that dream come true?" Julian didn't respond. He didn't need to. Emilia reached out, brushing her fingers lightly against his cheek. He didn't pull away. In the hush between lightning and thunder, her lips found his. Slow, soft, unhurried. Not desperate, but honest. A moment unplanned, but not untrue. When she pulled back, his eyes stayed closed, as if holding on to what had just been offered. "Please," he whispered, barely audible. "Don't let that be the only time." After that night in the library, after the fire, the tea, and that single, trembling kiss, neither of them spoke of what had passed between them. But everything was different. Emilia no longer felt like a ghost inside the estate. The silence she had once worked within now felt filled. Not loud, not overwhelming, just gently occupied by the presence of someone who had begun to care. Julian didn't speak in grand declarations. He spoke in the quiet language of presence. One morning, tucked beside her cleaning supplies, she found a slender book of poetry, soft-bound with underlined verses and dog-eared pages. Inside was a note, handwritten in crisp, deliberate ink. "This reminded me of you." The words stunned her, more than anything he could have said aloud. Julian began to linger more. He would pass through the kitchen while she rinsed dishes, or pause in the doorway of the library as she dusted shelves. He never interrupted, never imposed, but he asked simple things. "Is the work too much? How's your sister doing?" And then he'd listen fully, intentionally, as though her replies mattered more than any meeting or metric. But it was the lavender that broke her. She found them one afternoon in the greenhouse, newly planted, rows of soft purple swaying under warm light. The scent reached her before her eyes did. Julian was there, standing off to the side, hands tucked into his pockets. "I saw you pause near a bunch in town once," he said softly. "You smiled." I remembered. It wasn't extravagant, it wasn't expected. But in that moment, Emilia felt seen. Not for what she did, but for who she was. She had known, somewhere deep down, that this couldn't last. No matter how tender the gestures, how quietly love had bloomed between them, somewhere beyond the lavender and poetry and half-smiles, reality waited. And it came without warning. She was dusting the library when voices drifted from the half-closed door of Julian's office. "You're distracted," a man said. "Unreliable, you're missing meetings, shifting timelines, and now people are talking." "About what?" Julian asked, his voice already tight. "The housekeeper," came the answer. Sharp, cold. "You think the media won't spin that into scandal? Reclusive billionaire tangled up with the help? That's a PR disaster." Emilia stopped moving. Just like that, everything she was, everything they were, reduced to a headline. That evening, she waited in the greenhouse. The lavender still swayed gently in the breeze, but something in her chest had gone still. Julian found her there. "I've been looking everywhere," he said, breathless. "Why didn't you answer?" "I heard them." His face fell. "They're transferring me to another household," she said flatly. "They think this, us, is a complication. I'll fight it. I won't let them move you." "And what then?" Her voice trembled. "I become the woman everyone whispers about? A charity case?" "Julian, I can't afford to lose this job. My sister depends on it." "I'll take care of both of you," he said. She shook her head. "I don't want to be taken care of. I want to be chosen, and if you can't, then I have to walk away." He didn't stop her. The next morning she was gone, her suitcase light, her heart heavier than it had ever been. But in the greenhouse, nestled between the lavender he had planted for her, Julian found a single folded note. "Thank you for everything, beautiful, but I don't belong in your world." After Emilia left, the silence in the house changed. It was no longer peaceful. It was hollow. It wasn't the kind Julian had built to protect himself. It was the kind that haunted the corners of rooms she used to move through. He found himself pausing by the library door, expecting to hear her soft humming, or glancing into the kitchen, half expecting to see her hands gently drying teacups. But she was gone, and this time, the silence wasn't a choice. It was punishment. He didn't show up to meetings. He canceled every appearance. His executive suite remained untouched, the lights cold and still. The only thing left glowing in the room was a single screen, replaying security footage of her, Emilia, quietly moving among the bookshelves, running her fingers along spines as if they were living things. He watched that loop on repeat, as though it held the answers he didn't know how to speak. And in that stillness, Julian began building not code for a new product, not software for profit, but something real, something useful, something good. He created a system that could support families like hers, families hanging on by threads. He called it the Lavender Foundation, a name chosen not for strategy, but for meaning. The same flowers he had planted for her, now blooming into something bigger than either of them. 3 weeks later, Emilia received a phone call. She had been selected for full medical coverage for her sister and offered a new position with the foundation. She hadn't applied. That night, as the sun slipped behind gray clouds, her phone lit up again. Just 6 words. No name, no demands. "The lavender misses you, I do too." And in her chest, something long buried began to stir. The message stayed on her screen long after she'd read it. Emilia stared at it in silence, the 6 words humming quietly in her chest like a forgotten melody finding its way back. She didn't reply, not right away. But something inside her shifted. Just slightly, like a door she had once shut, now creaking open with the softest breeze. That night, she didn't sleep. The message lingered, not just on the screen, but somewhere deeper. She read it again, and again, as if the words were trying to reach past her guard. By morning, she found herself driving. The sky hung low, painted in muted grays, as if it, too, had something left unsaid. The road to the Ward estate felt both familiar and foreign. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with every passing mile, her pulse ticking in her throat. And then, just ahead, the wrought iron gates appeared, slowly parting as though they'd been waiting. This time, she didn't take the staff entrance. She walked through the front doors, steady but unsure. No one greeted her. No one had to. The house seemed to recognize her return, holding its breath in quiet reverence. She found him in the greenhouse, standing exactly where she'd imagined him so many nights before, among rows of lavender, blooming soft and steady. Julian turned at the sound of her steps, his breath caught. "You came," he said, voice rough. "I got your message," Emilia replied, "and all the ones you didn't send." Their eyes locked. No anger, no blame, just the ache of 2 people who had never really let go. "I thought giving you space was love," he said, "but maybe I was just hiding." Emilia stepped closer, her voice trembled but didn't break. "I was afraid too, that we were just meant to cross paths, not walk the same road." He reached for her hand, cold, familiar, and this time she didn't pull away. They didn't return to each other with fireworks or vows. Just quiet footsteps on familiar floors. Just the courage to stay, this time, with hearts not hidden. A few weeks after their reunion, Emilia moved back into the estate. But she didn't return as staff. She returned as herself, as someone finally seen. She didn't leave her work behind. Julian never asked her to. Instead, she began a new chapter at a community wellness center nearby, coordinating support programs for families who, like hers, had once felt invisible. The work was humble, but it mattered. It grounded her. It made her proud. Every evening, she came home to the greenhouse, where lavender still bloomed in the late sun. Julian often waited there, 2 mugs of tea in hand, sometimes with a book of poetry, other times with only silence and presence. They had no need for grand declarations. Love now lived in the everyday. In the way he always asked how her day went. In the way she reached for his hand without thinking. And one afternoon, when the air smelled sweet and golden light spilled across the glass panels, Julian appeared with something behind his back. Emilia raised an eyebrow. He stepped forward and smiled, shy, steady. "You once said love grows like lavender, quiet, steady, and always reaching for light," he said. Then he held out a small velvet box. "Maybe today is the day we plant forever." He knelt among the lavender he had planted for her. His voice trembled, but his eyes didn't waver. "I can't promise sunshine every day," he said, "but I promise to grow with you in every season for as long as you'll let me." Tears welled in Emilia's eyes, not from surprise, but from the truth of it. This wasn't rescue. It was choice. It was home. They were married a month later, right there in the greenhouse, the place where they'd unraveled, and then found their way back. The aisle was lined with hundreds of lavender stems, swaying gently as if they too had waited for this day. Emilia walked beneath the glass archway with her sister beside her, healthy now, smiling brightly. When she reached Julian, he whispered, "Thank you for coming back, and for staying." Time passed, not in leaps, but in quiet mornings and shared routines. Breakfasts warmed by sunlight, evenings spent among soft blooms, and the kind of love that asks nothing more than presence. They didn't chase forever, they lived it, one peaceful day at a time. 2 years later, the mansion that had once echoed with emptiness now rang with the joyful chaos of life. 2 voices in particular, their twin daughters, Nora and Elise. One had Emilia's soft curls, the other Julian's ocean blue eyes. Each morning, Julian lifted them into his arms and kissed their cheeks, then turned to Emilia with a look that never faded. "You're still the best choice I've ever made," he'd say. And Emilia would smile, not because life was perfect, but because it was real. They had walked through loneliness, through fear, through silence, and chose each other on the other side. The fog still rolled in from the Oregon coast, soft and heavy as before. But inside the glass walls of their home, warmth waited. And in the greenhouse, beneath the breath of soft purple blooms, love continued to take root. Quietly, patiently, day by day,